The cabin feels ordinary in that way only routine can be. Soft hum of engines, glowing screens, coffee cups rattling gently as the aircraft cuts through stable air. United Airlines Flight 237 crosses the open desert sky, and nothing in this moment suggests it will be remembered. Sarah Mitchell sits in seat 12A by the window, hands lightly folded in her lap. Her posture is straight, effortless, without stiffness, just practiced. She wears simple clothes, nothing that tries to explain her. Worn boots rest flat on the floor, their weathered leather drawing quiet glances from the man in the aisle seat. The businessman in 12C, sitting in the aisle seat with the middle seat empty between them, alternates his gaze between his screen and the window. His eyes linger on the faint scars along her forearm, on the way she never shifts, never fidgets. He types, pauses, types again, restless. A flight attendant pauses briefly, polite and efficient, offers her coffee. Sarah nods once, black. No small talk follows. The attendant moves away, sensing something closed but not unkind. Nobody says anything. Nobody needs to. Sarah notices everything, the glances, the distance, the silent assumptions. She doesn't react. She never does. Then the captain's voice breaks through the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Please remain seated. We've been notified that 2 Air Force fighter jets are now escorting our aircraft." Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories to never miss these true accounts of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Sarah doesn't look out the window when the announcement ends. She keeps her eyes forward, focused on nothing in particular, letting the low hum of the engines settle into her chest again. Her breathing remains even, controlled, the way she learned years ago. The exhaustion is bone deep, not the kind sleep fixes. It's the weight of months spent learning to exist without a mission, without a team backing her up, without the clarity of knowing exactly where she's needed. Retirement was supposed to be relief. Instead, it feels like standing in the wrong uniform, on the wrong side of a locked door. She didn't want to fly using her real name. She argued it quietly once. The answer came back clean and final. Protocol, paperwork, ceremony. She typed her name anyway, each letter feeling heavier than the last. Sarah Mitchell. No call sign, no shield, just the name that still opens doors she wishes would stay closed. Her injury shows only in subtle ways, a stiffness when the plane shifts angle, the precise angle of her leg when she crosses it. Anyone watching closely might notice how she adjusts before discomfort can manifest. No brace, no limp, nothing dramatic, just the memory of pain she hasn't fully learned to leave behind yet. Around her, the cabin atmosphere shifts. Whispers replace silence. People glance toward the windows, then back to their phones, then toward her boots. The businessman beside her sits a little straighter now, shoulders tight. She can feel his questions without hearing them. Is she dangerous? Is she involved? Is she the reason something's wrong? At best, they think she's ex-military. At worst, they think she's the problem. Her phone vibrates once against her thigh. She doesn't rush to check it. She waits a beat, then another, as if the delay might soften what's coming. When she looks, the name on the screen tightens something behind her ribs. Captain Noah Reed. She stares at the screen longer than she should. Noah was her team leader for 7 years. Not a loud man, not sentimental. He led the way she respected most, by standing firm where things broke first, by speaking last, by knowing when silence carried more weight than orders. The message is short. Tomorrow still stands. I know you don't want this. I know why. Just don't disappear. No rank, no call sign, just the voice of someone who stood beside her when words ran out. She types back with one hand, thumb steady. I'll be there. Nothing more.
No promises, no explanations. She locks the screen before she can add something she'd regret. The truth weighs heavy in her chest. She doesn't want to be remembered. Memory turns people into stories, and stories gloss over the parts that still wake her at night. She doesn't want applause for moments that ended with empty spaces in formation. She doesn't want her name spoken without the names that should follow it. She believes her usefulness ended the day she walked out of the medical board meeting with a piece of paper and a handshake. They called it honorable. They said it was necessary. They didn't say it was easy. She nodded, thanked them, and walked out without looking back. What she's never learned to say out loud is that public honor scares her more than public judgment ever could. Judgment fades, applause lingers. Applause asks you to stand still and accept things you're not sure you deserve. The plane moves smoothly through the sky, now escorted by shapes most passengers are too distracted to truly comprehend. Sarah doesn't look at them yet. She already knows they're there. She can feel the tension in the air, the subtle shift in rhythm that means something's been set in motion. Behind her, a man clears his throat. Somewhere ahead, a child asks a question that goes unanswered. The cabin is full of people trying to decide whether to be afraid or impressed, and none of them imagine the truth. None of them imagine that the woman sitting silently by the window, the one they've already judged and dismissed in their own ways, is the reason the sky started paying attention.
Sarah remains still, eyes forward, hands calm. She's learned that staying quiet doesn't make her invisible. It just postpones the moment when the world decides to remember. The captain repeats the announcement a second time, his voice steady with controlled calm, almost deliberate. He thanks everyone for their patience and assures them the escort is part of a routine security protocol. The words are meant to soothe, they do the opposite. Cell phones appear everywhere, screens glow, people lean into the aisle to look past strangers, craning their necks toward windows already crowded with faces. Someone whispers the word hijacking, someone mentions military exercise. A woman laughs once, a sharp, nervous sound, then stops when nobody joins her. Fear searches for a shape it can understand, finds none. Sarah remains seated. She doesn't reach for her phone. She doesn't turn toward the windows like the others. She knows what panic sounds like, and this isn't it yet. This is confusion, a search for permission to become something worse. The businessman beside her finally turns. He turns his head fully toward her, not openly, not accusingly, just enough to confirm a thought he's having. He looks at her boots again, then her hands, notices how still they are. It disturbs him more than scars ever could. Across the cabin, a man mutters that escorts only happen when something's wrong. Another passenger says the Air Force doesn't babysit civilian planes unless it's necessary. Someone else swears they saw this once on the news. Nobody mentions honor. Nobody imagines gratitude. They're all searching for danger. Sarah finally shifts her gaze toward the window. The jets sit right off the wing, close enough now that she can read their posture. They're not loose, they're not aggressive. Their spacing is precise, disciplined, protective. This isn't a response to a threat inside the aircraft. This is containment, but not the kind born of fear. She tracks the lead jet first. Angle, distance, speed. The pilot holds steady, matching the aircraft's movements with deliberate restraint. No showboating, no intimidation. The second jet mirrors perfectly. This is an escort that expects to be seen. Her jaw tightens slightly. This isn't routine. The noise in the cabin increases as silence breaks. Questions emerge without answers. A man 2 rows up stands and gets firmly ordered to sit back down. A flight attendant moves down the aisle with a strained smile, repeating the same phrases. Please remain seated. Everything is under control. Sarah feels the shift before it happens, the subtle change in air, the way attention begins to circle instead of scatter. She's been in rooms like this before, moments before truth breaks through. She takes her phone from her pocket finally, tilting the screen down.
She doesn't use the open network. She opens a secure channel that hasn't been used in months. The contact she selects responds faster than she expects. Maya. Lieutenant Colonel Maya Chen's voice message is clear and direct. No preamble. Where are you? Sarah keeps her voice low, even. Commercial flight, San Diego to Washington, being escorted. There's a pause. Not long, just enough. This isn't routine, Maya says. Not for this airspace, not like this. Sarah watches the jet hold its unwavering position. What is it then? Another pause. Then Maya exhales, slowly. I'm checking. Stay where you are. The word stay almost makes Sarah smile. Old habits. Around her, the cabin energy intensifies further. People begin pointing. Someone whispers that the jets are getting closer. They're not. They've stayed exactly the same distance the entire time. Fear doesn't care about precision. The businessman beside her finally speaks. Just one sentence, said carefully. Do you think we're in danger? Sarah turns her head toward him for the first time. She meets his eyes without expression. No, she says. The certainty in her voice doesn't comfort him. It unsettles him instead. Still, he nods and looks away. Her phone vibrates again. Maya's back. I need to ask you something, Maya says, and her tone has changed. This isn't curiosity, it's confirmation forming. Go ahead. Are you flying under your real name? The question is sharp, not loud, heavy. Sarah doesn't answer immediately. She looks out at the sky again, the jets maintaining their course, the precision suddenly feeling personal. Yes, she says finally. Maya curses softly. She hears it clearly. That explains it. Explains what? There's another pause, longer this time. Then Maya speaks carefully, choosing words the way cops do when crossing the line between systems. Your name was flagged, Sarah, not as a threat, as a priority, high value, protection protocols. Sarah feels a hollow open in her chest. That doesn't make sense, she says. I'm retired.
Retirement doesn't erase you, Maya responds, especially not from shared databases, especially not after everything. Sarah closes her eyes for an instant. Everything is a word people use when they don't want to list names. The cabin swells again. Voices now overlap. Someone claims they've seen more jets. Someone else says the pilot is lying. A man laughs too loud and says this is insane. Phones are filming everything. Somewhere behind Sarah, a woman starts crying softly. What would you have done in her place? Would you correct them or stay silent? Sarah opens her eyes, Maya still talking. If the manifest was cross-checked, Maya continues, and your name came up, then this escort isn't about what might happen, it's about ensuring nothing does. Sarah presses her thumb against the edge of her phone, trying to ground herself. I didn't ask for this. I know, Maya says, but the system doesn't care what you ask for. It cares what you represent. Sarah almost laughs at that. Represent. She spent months trying not to represent anything. She ends the call without ceremony, sets the phone face down, doesn't want to know more. Knowing more means acknowledging what's already unfolding. The cabin begins to quiet, not because fear has left, but because something else is taking its place. Curiosity sharpens. Glances return to her again, not with suspicion this time, but calculation. People are starting to ask a different question. Who? A retired Marine a few rows back sits up, leans into the aisle, studying the way Sarah sits, the way she breathes. He doesn't look afraid. He looks thoughtful, like someone recognizing a pattern. The businessman beside her shifts, suddenly aware of his own posture. He adjusts his jacket, clears his throat again. Sarah feels the weight of the moment pressing from all sides. She wants to stay silent. She wants to remain just another passenger who happened to sit by the window when something unusual occurred. But the sky doesn't behave this way without reason. She believes it doesn't matter anymore. She's believed that every day since she walked away from the only job that ever truly fit her. The system doesn't share that belief. Outside, the jets maintain formation, steady and patient.
Inside, the cabin waits, and Sarah Mitchell remains motionless, knowing that the distance between anonymity and memory just closed, whether she wants it to or not. The cockpit door stays closed, but change reaches the passenger cabin anyway. It comes first through the intercom, not in words but in timing. A brief pause before the captain spoke to air traffic control, a clipped confirmation where there should have been routine conversation, the kind of restraint that tells trained ears something shifted beyond public awareness. Sarah hears it immediately. She tilts her head slightly, listening past the cabin noise, past the anxious murmurs, toward the underlying rhythm. The plane is stable, but coordination around it has intensified. She can feel it the way she used to. Pressure changes before contact. Nothing dramatic, just intention sharpening. Outside the window, the two fighters adjust their spacing. It's so subtle most passengers don't notice. They're closer now, more aligned, flying with precision that leaves no room for improvisation. This is no longer a courtesy presence. This is intentional. The cabin senses something, even if nobody can name what. The initial panic doesn't return. Instead, a quieter tension settles in, denser, controlled. People stop talking over each other. Phones stay up, but voices lower. Fear gives way to curiosity, and curiosity has its own weight. Sarah remains still. Her calm is beginning to stand out now, not because she wants attention, but because she doesn't reflect the mood around her. While others lean forward, she stays back. While eyes dart to windows, hers stay fixed on the floor. She doesn't smile. She doesn't frown. She looks like someone waiting for something she already understands. 2 rows behind her, a man shifts in his seat. He's older, broad-shouldered, posture worn but intact. His cap is plain except for a faded insignia most civilians wouldn't notice. He doesn't look at Sarah's boots. He looks at her shoulders, the set of her spine, the movement of her head when the engines change tone.
Recognition doesn't come all at once. It never does. The escort tightens again. This time even untrained eyes notice. A murmur spreads through the cabin as shapes appear where there was nothing before. Another pair of fighters slides into view, leaving no contrails and no warning, positioning themselves with silent authority. No alarms sound, no explanation follows. The sky simply fills with purpose. A child presses her face against the window and whispers something to her mother. She pulls him back gently, her hand trembling despite herself. Flight attendants move with renewed focus. Their smiles are still there, but don't linger. They check seatbelts, repeat instructions, avoid questions. One of them glances toward the cockpit, then the aisle, then briefly at Sarah, before catching herself and looking away. Sarah feels a tension sliding past her, light now but persistent. It's no longer suspicion, it's assessment. People are beginning to realize the answer they're looking for isn't outside the aircraft. Her phone stays down. She doesn't try to reach for it again. Whatever's happening doesn't need her input anymore. It was all set in motion long before this flight even took off. Through the low static of the cabin speakers, a fragment of sound escapes, not meant for passengers. It's on the edge of encrypted communication, distorted and brief, lost under the engine hum and whispered conversations. Iron fist. The words are faint, almost inaudible. Nobody reacts. Nobody hears them for what they are. To the cabin, it's just noise, another meaningless syllable in a sky full of technical language. Sarah hears it. Her fingers tighten once against the armrest, then relax. Her face doesn't change. If anyone's watching closely, they miss it. The moment passes like a held breath released. The retired Marine behind her leans back slowly, eyes narrowing with faint recognition. He doesn't smile. He doesn't approach, just exhales long and quiet, like a puzzle piece clicked into place without needing a name. The businessman next to Sarah shifts again, looking at her with a different expression now. Not fear, not judgment, something closer to uncertainty.
He opens his mouth as if to speak, then thinks better of it and turns back to his screen. No explanation comes. The captain doesn't address the additional jets. The cabin stays quiet. The escort holds firm. The plane continues its course as if nothing changed, even though everything has. The unease persists through the cabin, slowly transforming into something more focused. People aren't asking what's happening anymore. They're beginning to wonder why. And behind that question, another waits. Who would justify this? Sarah sits silently by the window, eyes forward, breathing calm. The truth is close now, close enough to feel, still out of reach. And the sky, disciplined and patient, keeps the secret a little while longer.
The call doesn't come through the cabin speakers. It comes through Sarah's phone, vibrating once, hard and deliberate, as if it knows exactly how much noise it can make. She doesn't answer immediately. Around her, the aircraft continues humming, held stable by forces nobody inside can see. The cabin has become quiet, a watchful place, not calm, not afraid, suspended in air. People sense that whatever's happening has moved from rumor to intention. Sarah lifts the phone and brings it to her ear, angling just enough to shield the screen. "Ward," she says, her voice low, even, professional. "Commander Sarah Ward," a voice responds, crisp and precise. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Jack Hayes, United States Air Force. My call sign is Viper. I'm leading your escort." Sarah exhales through her nose, almost imperceptibly. "Go ahead." No rush in her tone, no alarm, just control. "Commander, I need to confirm identity per protocol. Can you verify your call sign?" For an instant, the plane feels very small. Sarah looks out the window again. The lead jet holds position, perfectly aligned with the wing. She can almost picture the pilot inside, helmeted, head turned just enough to look at the aircraft he's protecting. "Iron fist," she says. The silence on the line stretches. It lasts only a second, maybe two, but it has weight. It's not confusion, it's recognition. "Ma'am," Viper says finally, and the word is different now. His voice has shifted. The formality softens into something restrained, yet unmistakable. "Iron fist, ma'am. Confirmed." Sarah closes her eyes for a brief instant, then opens them. "You can drop the commander," she says. "I'm retired." "Yes, ma'am," he responds. "And no, ma'am, not to us." The cabin senses the change before it even hears it. It's subtle but undeniable, like when someone important enters a room silently and everyone notices at once. Viper returns, his voice no longer addressing only her. "Ma'am, if I may say, it's an honor flying with you today." Sarah doesn't say anything. "We studied your operations at Nellis, Ramadi, Mosul, other work that never made it past closed rooms. Your call sign isn't a nickname to us, it's a standard." Sarah shifts slightly in her seat, adjusting the angle of her leg. "You don't need to do this," she repeats. "Ma'am," Viper says gently, "we don't do this for just anyone." The escort tightens again. The formation closes, now undeniably ceremonial. Not a wall, a frame. The jets hold position with the kind of discipline reserved for parades, funerals, and moments meant to be remembered. Inside the cabin, silence spreads. It's not commanded. It arrives naturally as people collectively decide not to interrupt something they don't yet understand. A flight attendant pauses mid-step, hand on a seat back, eyes wide but steady. She looks from the window to Sarah, then back as if checking alignment. 2 rows behind, the retired Marine straightens fully in his seat. His gaze no longer wanders. He's done guessing. He's waiting. Sarah keeps the phone to her ear, voice low.
"Viper, this is a civilian aircraft." "Yes, ma'am," he responds. "And you're a civilian passenger, but you're also Iron Fist. Those things can exist at the same time." She closes her eyes again, this time longer. When she opens them, moisture threatens but doesn't fall. Not here, not now. The call ends softly, no farewell, no flourish. Sarah sets the phone in her lap. The plane continues forward, but the emotional direction has shifted completely. Where fear pressed before, gravity settles now. People aren't afraid anymore. They're cautious, curious, respectful, without knowing why. Someone whispers, "Who is she?" Nobody answers. A child asks her mother why the jets look like they're protecting them. She hesitates, then says, "Maybe they are." The businessman next to Sarah clears his throat softly. He opens his mouth, closes it again.
He speaks. "Ma'am," he begins, but stops, uncertain of the word that should come next. Sarah doesn't look at him. She doesn't need to. What would you have done in her place? Would you have corrected them or stayed silent? The cabin feels smaller now, not from fear, but because attention has concentrated. People watch Sarah without staring, sensing boundaries they don't want to cross. Flight attendants move differently now, slower, more deliberately. One of them approaches Sarah's row, stops, and simply nods once before moving on. No questions, no offers. Outside, the jets maintain formation, impeccable and patient. This is no longer just security, it's recognition in motion. Sarah believes it doesn't matter anymore, has believed that since the day she turned in the gear that still carried the heat of places she'd never returned to. She built her life around that belief, brick by brick, carefully. The system doesn't share it. The system remembers. The cabin waits, no longer asking what's happening, but silently, almost reverently, beginning to ask the only question that remains. Who would command this kind of sky? Confirmation doesn't come with drama. It comes quietly, carried by footsteps in the aisle. The flight attendant stops beside Sarah's row, posture straight but uncertain. Her voice lowers instinctively, as if the cabin itself taught her to speak carefully now. "Ma'am," she says, "the captain asked me to let you know the escort is for you." Sarah looks at her for the first time since the call ended. She nods slightly, nothing more. The attendant swallows hard, blinks once, firmly, and backs away like she crossed an invisible line. She doesn't ask questions. She doesn't offer anything else. She simply moves away, hands trembling just enough to notice. That's all it takes. The businessman beside Sarah reaches for his phone, finger moving now, fast, not from nervousness, but determination. He types her name, Sarah Mitchell. He scrolls, stops, scrolls again. His face changes in stages, confusion sharpening into focus, then into something like disbelief held in check. He angles the screen slightly, enough for the woman across the aisle to see. She leans forward, her eyes widen. She says nothing, but the look spreads, seat to seat, a wave of silent understanding. No headlines, no sensational words, just a few declassified documents, references, a blurred photograph, dates without details, enough for those who know how to read between lines. The cabin doesn't explode, it stays still. 2 rows back, the older man with the faded cap stands from his seat. He doesn't hurry. He steps into the aisle with the caution of someone who understands when haste would be disrespectful. He keeps his back straight. His movements are measured. He stops beside Sarah's row and faces her. "Staff Sergeant Thomas Hale, United States Marine Corps, retired," he says, clearly, loud enough to be heard, but low enough to keep private. "Desert Storm, then Fallujah later." He pauses, then continues. "I served with men who spoke your call sign like it was a standard, not a story." Sarah meets his eyes. She doesn't interrupt. "I don't know the details," Hale says, "and I don't need them. I just wanted to say thank you, not for heroics, for discipline,
for the ones who made it home because someone held the line when it mattered. His voice doesn't waver. There's no performance in it, just gravity. Sarah stands, not fast, not slow, exactly when respect demands it. The movement sends a visible shock through the cabin. Seats creak, breaths catch. Hale raises his hand and salutes, sharp in the narrow aisle, unmistakable. Sarah returns it without hesitation. Muscle memory guides her through the movement, clean and perfect. The exchange lasts only a second. It changes everything. The cabin freezes. Nobody speaks. Nobody films. Phones lower as if guided by the same unwritten rule.
The engines seem quieter in that moment, the aircraft maintaining its course through a sky suddenly charged with meaning. Sarah lowers her hand first, sits back down. Hale nods once, steps aside, and returns to his seat without another word. The silence holds, and in that silence truth settles, not in spectacle, but in weight. The intercom clicks once, softly, almost apologetic. The cabin straightens without anyone needing to say so. People sense the difference between a captain speaking and something else. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Jack Hayes, United States Air Force," the voice says. "Call sign Viper. I'm the lead pilot assigned to this escort." He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't pause for effect. He speaks the way professionals do when they know every word will carry weight. "Ladies and gentlemen, the escort you're seeing today is not in response to a threat. It's not a drill. It's a mission of honor." A breath moves through the cabin, slow and collective. "Our mission was to ensure safe passage of Commander Sarah Ward, United States Navy retired. Call sign Iron Fist." Nobody moves. Nobody reacts outwardly. The silence deepens, thick and attentive. "Commander Ward's service spans decades of joint operations," Viper continues. "Much of it will never be discussed publicly. That's how it should be. But among those who serve, her name isn't taught as legend, but as reference, as the standard we measure ourselves against." Sarah lowers her gaze to her hands. She keeps them still. "This escort," Viper says, "isn't about celebration. It's about recognition. It's about making sure those who carried the weight of others don't carry it alone on the way home." The intercom goes silent. No applause follows. Nobody claps. Nobody stands. The gravity of the moment doesn't invite noise. It invites stillness. Outside the window, the sky begins to change. As the aircraft descends, the fighters adjust formation one last time. The lead jet moves forward slightly, then banks back, clean and deliberate, tracing a smooth arc. One by one, the others follow, each separation precise, disciplined, ceremonial. It's a missing man pattern, not for the fallen, but for the living who carry them. Passengers watch in silence. Some bring fingers to lips, some close their eyes. Nobody reaches for phones. Sarah watches too, expression unreadable. She knows what the maneuver means. She's seen it from the ground before, never expected to see it from inside. The plane touches down smoothly, tires kissing the runway with a gentleness that feels intentional. As they taxi, lights appear along the taxiway. Fire trucks, emergency vehicles parked in formation, motionless, lights flashing without sirens, without urgency, a silent corridor. The flight attendant stands now, straighter, hands clasped, eyes wet but steady. The retired Marine sits at attention without thinking about it. The businessman removes his glasses and lowers his head. The plane passes beneath arcs of water, rising into the air, catching light and breaking it into soft colors. No one explains. No one needs to. This isn't celebration. It's passage. The captain's voice returns briefly, hoarse but controlled, welcoming everyone to Washington. He thanks them for their cooperation. He doesn't add anything more, doesn't need to. The plane slows, stops for a long moment. Nobody moves.
Sarah remains seated, shoulders straight, gaze fixed forward. She doesn't seek faces. She doesn't look for reactions. Honor arrived whether she wanted it or not, and she bears it the only way she knows, silently. Respect fills the cabin, not as sound, but as presence. And for the first time since the flight began, nobody wonders why the sky paid attention. They understand.
The gate door opens, and airport noise floods in, but stops almost immediately. At the end of the jetway stands a formation that doesn't belong to travel schedules or terminals. Navy dress uniforms, Marine dress blues, Air Force service coats lined shoulder to shoulder, motionless, waiting. Sarah stops at the threshold. She didn't know this would happen. The certainty overwhelms her, but she steps forward anyway. Rear Admiral Jonathan Keller stands at the front. He doesn't speak. He raises his hand and delivers the first salute, clean and precise. The response is immediate as the entire formation moves as one, a single wave of respect through the terminal, precise and unmistakable. Sarah returns the salute, her arms steady despite the weight pressing behind her eyes. Master Chief Petty Officer Olivia Grant steps forward next. Her voice is calm, steady, powerful without needing volume. Being a SEAL doesn't end when the uniform comes off, she says. The trident doesn't disappear. It becomes a responsibility. You will always be one of us. Sarah nods once. It's all she can manage. Then someone breaks formation. Captain Noah Reed crosses the space between them without asking permission. Hierarchy dissolves. Protocol gives way to something older. He hugs her tight and quick, the way teammates do when words run out. He steps back just enough to meet her eyes. "You can't just disappear," he says, quietly. "Not from us." She exhales, the sound ragged despite effort. For the first time that day, her composure cracks, just a little. 6 months later, Sarah Ward stands in a quiet classroom at Naval Special Warfare Center. The walls are bare. Candidates before her are young, alert, waiting. She introduces herself without flourish. Some recognize the name, others don't, but that's not the point. She talks to them about responsibility, about decisions that follow you long after the noise fades, about carrying the names of those who didn't come home, not as burdens, but as guides. She tells them courage doesn't announce itself, and leadership isn't claimed with clean words. She tells them surviving the mission doesn't end there. A candidate asks how you deal with loss. Sarah answers without hesitation. You carry it forward. You make choices, then you stand by them. You don't forget. When the room empties, she stays for a moment, hands resting on the table, steady. Honor isn't volume, it's memory that refuses to fade. Some stories weren't made to be loud. They were made to stay with you, the way a memory stays long after the moment has passed. Sarah Ward didn't ask to be seen, and she didn't ask to be remembered. Yet her journey reminds us that service leaves echoes, even when those who carry the burden try to walk away quietly. Courage doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it sits beside a window, unnoticed, carrying names nobody else can see. And sometimes the world pauses just long enough to acknowledge that sacrifice isn't erased by time or retirement. If this story moved you, take a moment to reflect on the men and women who continue serving silently every day. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more military and veteran stories. These stories keep courage alive for future generations.